Springfield's Talk 104.1, and hello, everyone. How do you do? It is Thursday. My name is Nick Reed. Tomorrow, Friday, we will have the Friday Road Show at Scramblers. If you'd like to come out and have yourself some breakfast while we do the show live, Scramblers is on Republic Road in National. If you're not sure exactly where it is, we will have Christy Fulnekian with us. She's not been with us for the last several weeks, a combination of surgery that she had and court dates, but she will be in studio with us in the 7 a.m. hour also. We have Author of the Week, sponsored by ABC Books on North Glenstone. It's a great one, very timely, particularly given the last several weeks and the revelations regarding the indoctrination that some within our community, the education community, are trying to push upon the kids, the segregation, the pitting them against one another based on race, convincing one race in particular they're victims, even if they don't know they are. Close your eyes, everyone here. That whole scenario and the continued push to manipulate young people. And there's another article, and of course it's the outsiders are racist. You know, the insiders, the culture that continues to divide kids is a Christian culture, see? Oh, yes, you're totally mistaken by what you're seeing, but these parents that aren't part of the establishment elite culture, they're racist. They're a bunch of it's the same old song over and over and over again. The news leader along with the establishment, and at some point you'd think, can you not get something new? I mean, really? Really, the race card, either race or homophobic or transphobic? We find just to shake it up a little, just a tad bit. It's becoming rote at this point. It's just, let's see, which will they use this time? A racist, transphobic, which one will they use? And right now it is the racism card. We'll talk about that. Also, Trump. The arrest that was expected did not happen. Then unexpectedly, the grand jury was told, don't even bother coming in on Wednesday, which was yesterday. According to numerous sources, this is because of dissent that has occurred within the prosecutor's office after it was revealed during grand jury testimony that what Cohen was saying is totally inconsistent with what he has said in the past regarding these payments. Cohen being the convicted perjurer that the Democrat DA is relying on to try and go after Trump outside of the DA's own jurisdiction. What has potentially further complicated that, because you look at that, you're like, well, all right, he said. So you got Cohen here who's making this claim as a convicted perjurer that, yes, Trump knew about all of this, these payments, and then you have Cohen's former legal advisor testifying before the grand jury saying that's absolutely not true. I specifically asked Cohen if Trump knew about it, and he told me no, whether he was telling me the truth or not. There is a letter that surfaced that was from several years ago from Cohen's attorney, his own attorney. And this letter states that Trump knew absolutely nothing about it. So Cohen himself, his own attorney, has made this declaration. So this additional information could be part of the reason we're hearing that there's dissent within the DA's office, that they're just going to, it's so clear to everyone what is going on. And this has nothing to do with justice. It is essentially the Democrats, at least in that DA's office, the sex police is what they've turned into, the sex police, because that's what this is all over. And let's not forget, it's the Democrats who back in the 90s, when you had a president of the United States who had been accused of everything from serial sexual harassment to rape, was caught committing perjury because he was using his authority as president to have relationships with an intern that wasn't much older than his teenage daughter. And the left said the sex police, sex police. What is it with Republicans obsessed with? So what if the president wants to have sex with an intern in the Oval Office, if he wants to lie about it, if he wants to try and cover it, so what? It's his personal life. What's this obsession with sex? And here, all this with Trump is about two consenting adults. She didn't work for him. See, if you are relatively new to the scene of how these things work and play out, there's background that's necessary, because there was a period of time when Democrats claimed any sexual relationship between a boss and an employee, between somebody in authority and a subordinate, is in and of itself sexual harassment at the least. Because the employee may feel that that's the only way they can get ahead, or it sends a message to others in the office that that's how you get ahead, and it makes them feel compelled, should they, in that sort of atmosphere, be offered the opportunity to have relations with someone higher up, that they will believe that that's what's necessary to do. But Democrats, of course, changed that tune when it was one of theirs. But now we're back to it. We're a scenario. You're talking about two consenting adults. She's not accusing him of sexual harassment or sexual assault, just having a relationship that she signed a non-disclosure agreement to, not talk about or give her version of the story. And this is what the Democrats are obsessed over? Consensual sex? What prudes they have become. Jason Ryman with the latest news update. All right, so as Ryman mentioned there, flood watch this afternoon through tomorrow night. Showers, storms this afternoon, heavy rain, high of 70. Showers and storms tonight, 48. Showers and storms, heavy rain tomorrow with a high of 53. Mostly cloudy on Saturday, 56. Trump grand jury expected to report back today. According to court sources, they were told not to even bother coming in on their regularly scheduled Wednesday. Two sources relaying that the grand jury was canceled because of, quote, major dissension in Bragg's office, with one source claiming that he's having a tough time convincing members on potential charges because of the total weakness of the case. Weakness suggests that there's some strength there, and I would argue there's none at all. When asked for comment about what's happening behind the scenes in terms of the grand jury and possible indictment against Trump, the DA's office said, quote, "We can't confirm or comment on grand jury matters." And we know what this is. I mean, here's the thing about this. There is not a soul out there that is arguing this is solid. None. There are people on the right, the middle, and the left in the legal community and some in the political community that are noting that this is simply political. This is Banana Republic stuff. The Justice Department has declared that there's nothing illegal here. The Federal Elections Commission, under Biden, by the way, have declared that there's nothing here, that no laws were broken. This same DA, when he took office, said there was absolutely nothing, but then he got political pressure. Now, there are people out there on the left who are promoting this, but they're not giving any legal reason for it. People on the right, the middle, and the left who are noting that this is simply political, and we have now, or at least this Democrat, with the support of some Democrats, have turned us into a country where you go out and you arrest political opposition. With their argument, however, or that description, if you will, comes the legal explanation as to why it is that nothing about this is legit. Those on the left who are supportive of it, it's just get Trump because we hate him. They don't give any legal argument. They use the term hush money because that is the closest thing that they can utilize in terms of verbiage to make it sound as if something illegal was done. You could just as easily, if you wanted to describe it in a manner that appears as if somebody did something illegal, describe it as a shakedown. That here is a woman who was threatening to claim she had an affair with someone who was running for president unless she got money. That sounds sort of like a shakedown, doesn't it? Do you notice how it's never described like that? That in exchange for money, she agreed not to derail his presidential campaign with claims, true or not, that she had an affair with him. Why is it not viewed that way? You know, if it were the other way around, that's of course how it would be. In fact, when there were accusations against Bill Clinton, it was always about who's funding these people. What organization are these people members of? Oh, well, look, they got money from this right wing. Oh, some right-wing organization is paying their attorney fees. So clearly this is motivated politically and financially. But whenever you have some woman that apparently, this is the storyline that's being put out there, said, I am going to claim we had a relationship, and this is the context of his presidential campaign, unless you give me money. Money's not considered a motivating factor for Stormy Daniels, is it? Oh, no. Not at all. Cohen, of course, is making claims that this was hush money from Trump, that he essentially was a conduit. And then Robert Costello came in as a witness who was a former legal advisor to Cohen and said, not only is that not true, but Cohen himself, I was very specific while all this was going on, asking Cohen, where did this money come from? Is this money is it from Trump? No. Is it from any Trump organization? No. Is it from any Trump entity? No. Is it from you? No. Well, where did you get it? He said he took out a HELOC because he didn't want anyone to know about it. Complicating matters further, there is more evidence that has rather newly surfaced, that throws the gut punch into the DA's case. In a 2018 letter that Michael Cohen's own attorney at the time wrote to the Federal Elections Commission, Cohen said that he, quote, used his own personal funds to facilitate a payment of $130,000 to Miss Stephanie Clifford, a.k.a. Stormy Daniels, in 2016. That matches what Costello testified before the grand jury that Cohen also told him. So not only do you have that testimony, but you have a letter from the attorney. At the time, this isn't a former attorney and things have gone sour and now he's trying to get back at Cohen. This was when he was acting as Cohen's attorney. Cohen's attorney, Stephen Ryan, said in the February 2018 letter, quote, neither the Trump organization nor the Trump campaign was a party to the transaction with Ms. Clifford, and neither reimbursed Mr. Cohen for the payment directly or indirectly. Aside from the fact, this is how absurd, yet at the same time frightening it is, because this is where the Democrats have taken us. First off, none of what he is alleged to have done is even illegal. And incidentally, that's where you have some people on the left who have come out against this move against Trump. It's not because they like him or because they think that he did not do it, or even that they some of them, I'm sure, believe Cohen. Now, not what he's been saying over the years, but believe that. But the reason they're against it is because they recognize that this is not against the law. But even aside from that, the non-illegal activity that he is being accused of is contradicted by, there is absolutely no evidence that the non-illegal action even took place. The one person that they are using as their evidence has already been convicted of committing perjury, and his attorney's own letter from years ago contradict what Cohen is saying today. Cohen has contradicted what Cohen is saying today. Everyone else who has any sort of privy perspective into this, had any sort of involvement or knew about it as it was going on, all contradict what Cohen is saying today. McCarthy, whom I think is doing a very good job in dealing with the media on questions, whether it's January 6th tapes or this particular scenario. And McCarthy's at a Congressional Institute panel, and they're talking about issues. And so, of course, you have somebody in the media asking in a self-fulfilled scenario, well, is the potential of Trump being arrested for hush payments a distraction for the GOP when it comes to wanting to talk about actual issues?
I don't agree with your question, right? So it's not here that we're coming to defend President Trump. What we're coming to defend is equal justice in America. And I think every American believes in that. I've watched CNN last night, a person that is never going to vote for me with the exact same position. So I don't know if you would phrase the question the same to him as you would to me, because we both come to the same answer, that what we see before us is not equal justice. What we see before us is a political game being played by a local. Look, this isn't New York City. This is just the Manhattan. This is just a borough DA. Okay? So understand the question you're raising or the person you're defending. Do you want to defend a borough DA who's taking up a case of a person who's a nominee for president, don't talk about party or the name, who others have already looked at and says it doesn't work, who's more than 7 years beyond the status of the time? I think if you really thought that way and looked at all those facts, you probably wouldn't ask me that question, not in the same way, or even ask it. You would have asked me about education, China, or HR 1.
So that's McCarthy on the House side as Speaker of the House. Meanwhile, you have Texas Republican Senator John Cornyn, who recently crossed the aisle with Democrats in order to pass new anti-Second Amendment gun restrictions, and is said to be vying to replace Mitch McConnell, and thus far is appearing to try to prove that he will be a replica of McConnell, and that is somebody that is part of the establishment and in no way, shape, or form has any interest in representing the liberties or the Constitution or the American people. And he's attacking McCarthy and the House GOP for investigating this prosecution. Now, McCarthy ordered the GOP-led committee to probe this abuse of power in, quote, pursuing political vengeance against President Trump. So he's called on the committee to investigate the political aspect of this, because I know this sounds crazy. There are some people who believe that you should not be charged for a crime just because you are potentially going to be the biggest challenge to that political party holding on to the White House in the upcoming election. Cornyn thinks that there are better things to do, and he doesn't understand why this is happening. And this is why so many Americans, frankly, have thrown their hands in the air and said, what's the point any longer? If you have a leader in the Republican Party that doesn't find value in stopping the other political party from blatantly and clearly looking to arrest the leader of the political opposition, it is mind-boggling to me and many Americans that one, it's sad that Democrats don't stand up and say that's wrong. But when you have people that are vying to be the leader of Republicans in the Senate that are taking that exact same position that some people on the radical left, are any Republicans safe? Would Cornyn feel the same way if he were the one that were being targeted to put in prison for something that's not even a crime that everyone recognizes as just political? Of course, he feels secure because he's one of them, not one of us. Springfield's Talk 104.1, I'm Nick Reed. We're going to get a traffic update. Look at the weather here. There is a flood watch this afternoon through Friday night, and then the continued efforts of the establishment with the help of the news leader to block community members from getting elected on the school board and keeping in the establishment. And the typical racist card is being played. SBS board candidate calls questions about racially insensitive meme a distraction. We'll tell you what it's all about. And then we'll give, if the news leader is really interested in comments that have been made or memes that have been shared or retweets that have a racist element, we'll give you some leads that you can follow up on. So be sure to listen for that as well in moments. I'm Nick Reed. First Alert Forecast, sponsored by Navant. Employee benefits at work. Flood watch this afternoon through Friday night. Showers, storms this afternoon. Heavy rain. High of 70. Showers and storms tonight. Heavy rain, 48 for a low. Showers and storms tomorrow. Heavy rain, 53. Mostly cloudy Saturday with a high of 56. School board candidate calls questions about racially insensitive meme a distraction. So here's the situation. A citizen, a parent in Springfield, in the Springfield School District, by the name of Landon McCarter, decided that he wanted to run and be on the school board. Now, this, of course, is This is kryptonite to the establishment. And so, along with the news leader acting as their propaganda media outlet, they do whatever they can to paint these people as radical, paint them as racist. And the best that they could evidently find, which was worthy of an entire article, was a meme that was reposted on his Facebook page back in 2018 that had a image of so it was titled "What If Rapunzel Was Black?" And it was accompanied by, and this is the description of the news leader, so, take it with a grain of salt, an image of thick, curly black hair protruding from the top of 3 windows of a tall tower rather than cascading down the side like blonde-haired fairy tale princess. Screenshots of the image posted on his account circulated on social media, often accompanied by questions about McCarter and his campaign. This is what McCarter said, quote, "I do not recall posting that meme in 2018. Since I run a digital ad agency, I've had many staff with access to my social profile who post content on my behalf. This is a mere distraction of the real issues facing our district. Our academic performance has been in decline for 12 years. We have talented teachers, administrators, and support staff leaving our district in record numbers because of distractions taking precedence over real issues that are hindering the learning and development of our kids in our public school system. The community's fed up with this. They're demanding change. Let's please focus on real issues, on how to improve our struggling district and not on internet memes from 2018. For some people, and we just don't know, unless somebody who worked for him or his company at the time that did have access acknowledges, yes, I posted that. We don't know whether that's true or not. Now, I think some people might think that that's far-fetched, but I know here in this bill, there are a number of people that have access and post things on my Facebook, my social media. So, when you have people that work around you or work for you and your social media is something that's utilized, that is not uncommon for that particular thing to happen. Does that mean that it happened that way? I don't know. He, for his part, and some people say this shows the honesty, he's saying, I don't remember that. It could have been here are the scenarios in which it could have occurred. I will also say something I think is interesting, and this is the double standard. It is not an uncommon, I would not say meme, but point of whether it's comedy or discussion all the time. Well, what if this person were black? Or what if this person were white? What if this character? I think, was it Dave Chappelle? There was some black comedian well before Obama that did a whole bit on what if the president were black. And it played off of black stereotypes. There was a movie, and there's probably more than one, that was made back in, I think, 2013, 2014, called Rapunzel Jackson, and it was all about this very thing. And it played off of the hair, and it was a black film made for the purposes of a black audience. Now, of course, you can get into the discussion of double standards, and, well, it's different. White people aren't supposed to post such things. Okay, fine. And it doesn't mean that you have to think that this is funny. It's not funny. Think that it's making some deeper point. But let's not pretend as if this is some anomaly to discuss issues of race and what if this race were this character instead of this race, because that's something that has been used in entertainment venues and purposes for a very long time. This also, and you have to understand, when I talk about the coordination that goes on with the elites and the news leader, what I mean by that is these stories don't just organically pop up. What occurs is you have a team of people that are the elite that they seek out and find anything they can, and then they get in contact with the news leader, and they're like, here's the next story for us to do. And the news leader gets on it immediately. The person that is representing the average citizen here is a parent by the name of Brittany. 'Brittany 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 And the news leader notes that she also posted more recent memes, which she deemed questionable, allegedly culled from McCarter's Facebook page. In one, there is an image of former Russian dictator Joseph Stalin making a heart sign with the words, "Is everyone enjoying their their free 30-day trial of communism?" This is from May 2020, so I'm guessing it's about government lockdowns or the government forcing lockdowns. Now, what about that is questionable? So this is where the news leader doesn't give any context. They're just regurgitating, oh, here's something else I found. Okay, we'll just put that in here for you. And another from the same month, an image of Dr. Evil from the Austin Powers film series making a call with the words, "The pandemic and murder hornets aren't working anymore. Go ahead and start the racism war." Again, they don't, and this is how you know it's propaganda. There's no description here as to why it is these things are supposed to be offensive. You're just told that they are. I do give credit to the news leader that they note that this person is not just some random individual, but a supporter of Judy Bruner and incumbent Sharita Thomas Tate. So this is somebody that is in the circle, and the news leader could have left that part out, but they did put that in, and they deserve credit for that. Asked why she shared the memes on social media, Dyer said, "It's important for people to know who the candidates really are. It's really easy to put up a facade." Well, I think that's very important. And you know what I would recommend to Claudette, the news leader? That she take inspiration from that. She take inspiration from the proposition that it's important for people to know who the candidates really are. And I'm going to help out with that, just a tidbit, coming up here in a couple of minutes. We've got to get a traffic update. I'm Nick Reed. Video stream online, a couple of different places. Facebook Live, 1041 Nick Reed, also YouTube, and it is our live video feed sponsored by Springfield Wraps, who designed our studios as well. The news leader has an entire piece written. SPS board candidate calls question about racially insensitive meme a distraction, and this is all surrounding a meme, including a question, what if Rapunzel was black? And incidentally, I don't know if this was a meme created by a black person or a white. We have no idea what the context of this is. But it said, what if Rapunzel was black, accompanied by an image of thick, curly black hair protruding from the top, the tall tower, rather than cascading down. That is also the similar theme and point of a black-made movie called Rapunzel Jackson from about 10 years ago, in which the central character, Rapunzel, got a perm in order to attract the prince or to be more attractive. But that aside, now he says, I don't remember if I posted that. A lot of people within my business had access to my site. They would post things. But listen, this is a distraction. And it is a distraction. And that's the whole point of this. So you do not vote on whether or not we want a better education for our kids, whether or not we want to reverse this trend of decreased results for our children. They instead want you to think, well, this guy must be racist, and we can't have racist in there. The person who was being used to make this an issue so the news leader could do a story told the news leader it's important for people to know who the candidates really are. It's really easy to put up a facade. Now, this is all based around a posting of a meme on social media, not that was created by Landon McCarter, but just posted, which he doesn't even know if he was the one who posted it. But let's just say it was posted on his social media, not developed by him or anyone that he knows, but reposted. And so that is enough for us to get insight into who somebody is. All right, well, let's explore that a bit, shall we? One of the candidates who is running, who also works at MSU, is Sharita Thomas Tate. And she retweeted the following opinion piece in the New York Times titled, "How White Women Use Themselves as Instruments of Terror." Let me read you some excerpts from this retweet from one of the school board candidates who currently does sit on the school board in Springfield. At a time of so much death and suffering in this country, by the way, this piece was from May 27th of 2020. At a time of so much death and suffering in this country and around the world from the COVID-19 pandemic, it can be easy, I suppose, to take any incidents that don't result in death as minor occurrences, but they aren't. The continued public assault on black people, particularly black men, by the white public and by the police predates the pandemic and will outlast it. This racial street theater against black people is an endemic, primal feature of the republic. Specifically, I am enraged by white women weaponizing racial anxiety, using their white femininity to activate systems of white terror against black men. This has long been a power that white women realized they had and that they have exerted. This was again evident when a white woman in New York City's Central Park told a black man, a bird watcher, that she was going to call the police and tell them that he was threatening her life. This was not innocent nor benign nor divorced from historical context. Throughout history, white women have used the violence of white men and the institution these men control as their own muscle. We often like to make white supremacy a testosterone-fueled masculine expression, but it is just as likely to wear heels as a hood. In another excerpt from the opinion piece retweeted by Sharita Thomas Tate running for the school board, noted in a disturbing number of the recent cases of the police being called on black people for doing everyday mundane things, the calls have been initiated by white women. And understand this, black people view calling the police on them as an act of terror, one that could threaten their lives, and this fear is not without merit. There are too many noosed necks, charred bodies, and drowned souls for these white women not to know precisely what they're doing. They are using their white femininity as an instrument of terror against black men. Now, incidentally, the retweet, get this, was originally tweeted out by H. Wes Pratt, who is the Chief Diversity Officer at MSU. See, this, if we really are interested in postings and retweets of people who are running for the school board because it's important to know who these people really are, don't you think? I mean, do you think if we're going to have an entire investigative report done on a meme that was posted back in 2018, does it not make sense to also have an entire piece surrounding in order to reflect on who Sharita Thomas Tate is? The retweet calling white women terrorists in this country, accusing you as a white woman of using your white femininity to create acts of terror on black men in this country? Do we think the news leader will actually do any sort of reflective piece on this? So we can get some real insight into who she is. Or does it only count if it's not one of the elites? Does it only count if it's not a professor at MSU? Does it only count if it's a parent of a student in the Springfield School District? Springfield's Talk 1041, I'm Nick Reed. Garage experts. It is, well, for me, men and women generally have different ideas about what is the most exciting home improvement job. Oftentimes, for ladies, it's a kitchen and bathroom. For a guy, it's a garage. It's not always that way. I know I'm stereotyping. I could just tell you in my own experience, whenever I told my wife, hey, we're going to do this, this was the one project, she's like, well, you can just figure all that stuff out. She didn't have much interest in it. But she loves showing it off as much as I do now. And if I had ever even been told, let alone her have been told, you will show this room off to people, it's a garage, yet you will show it off to people who visit your home, never would have believed it. But it's true. You can see what Garage Experts did with my garage. We've got video of it at 1041 Nick Reed on Facebook. Also, it doesn't just have to be residential. The improvement to the flooring itself has so many tremendous benefits for any flooring, whether it's a restaurant, a veterinarian office, a doctor's office, or your garage. And it could be commercial as well, factory floors. Just give them a call, and they'll get together with you and find out what your needs are and let you know what it is they can do for you. That's Garage Experts under Nick's endorsements, ksgf.com. If the news leader is so interested also in what's going on in the schools in terms of divisiveness, maybe they should investigate why it is that Glendale has a teacher that insists on putting on the whiteboard in big letters, more rainbow, less straight. This seems to me a significant statement to make. It is as significant as if it were reversed. Let's put it this way. Do we think the news leader would do a story if there was a teacher that wrote on the whiteboard in big letters, less rainbow, more straight, well, we would hear about how awful that was, how marginalized that makes young people feel, how it may make young people in these formative years feel ashamed of who they are. And I would argue that that would be considered completely and totally unacceptable within the Springfield public school system, as it should be. And most people would agree with that, even on the right. But boy, you reverse it, and you tell straight kids there needs to be less of you. I'd be curious, and this would be a great interview, I suppose, for the news leader to do. Should not be difficult to find out what teacher at Glendale posted that. What does that look like when you promote more rainbow and less straight? What does that look like? Just how do you eliminate the straight students? I mean, certainly you can't be talking about promoting. We need more promoting of the LGBT lifestyle and less of the straight lifestyle, because I don't think anyone can argue that it's the other way around. I mean, you can't go anywhere on any given day without seeing the promotion of the rainbow. So I would be very curious to see a real in-depth piece, since the news leader's into these sorts of stories, on what that looks like and what it is that straight students are supposed to feel when they're told there needs to be less of them. News in 60 seconds, I'm Nick Reed. Floors Plus, Nixa and Springfield, all of your flooring needs and what a difference floors can make. The difference between trying to roll your wheelchair over plush carpeting versus luxury
Am I
vinyl
on?
planking.
Oh,
Yes,
yeah.
you are.
Oh, my
Christy
gosh.
Fulnecki in with us.
Whoop, whoop.
Wheels of Justice. That's what I recommend you have put on the back of your wheelchair.
I don't think anybody knows I'm in a wheelchair,
Yeah,
so they might
yeah.
not be getting the joke.
And we'll fill people in coming up. Of course, we've got the video stream sponsored by Springfield Wraps, and that is on our 1041 Nick Reed Facebook page, also YouTube. But one of the benefits to tie it in, really, truly, when it comes to luxury vinyl planking is the absolute durability of it. We have a dog and a cat as well, but I've heard from people, as we always wanted hardwood floors, they're like, oh, you've got to be real careful because it can get so scratched up if you have dogs, and it's just such a pain. But with luxury vinyl planking and the advancements in that particular product line, you get that look of the wood, but at the same time, the durability. So whatever flooring needs you may have, Floors Plus in Nixa and in Springfield under Nixa endorsements, ksgf.com. Jason Rima with the latest news. That weather is sponsored by St. Clair of the Ozarks Home Improvements, as he mentioned. Flood watch this afternoon through Friday. A high today of 70, 48 tonight. Showers, storms, heavy rain tonight, tonight, and tomorrow. Saturday, mostly cloudy, a high of 56. Christy Fulnecki, it's been a while since you've been in studio.
Yes.
We did, though. There were a number of us. Somehow you all managed, despite being confined to a wheelchair, to get out. It was a couple Saturdays ago. I know you've been out, but I'm just talking. I've seen you.
Oh, yeah. You mean
a
at
bunch
night,
of us
like going
went to,
out,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
Yeah.
Downtown Springfield, and that's when I suggested it. Because you're going to court, that you have wheels.
Oh, yeah.
You have a big sign that says "Wheels of Justice" put on the back of your wheelchair. It's so
right.
obvious.
Well,
I
we
can't
have to
believe
say
that
I'm
this-
not permanently disabled.
No,
but yeah.
you had some surgery.
I ripped my meniscus, had surgery, so you're supposed to be non-weight bearing. So that's easier said than done. But I've made an impact. I already make a scene when I go to court because of bright colors and I talk loud. And usually, like, these smaller counties are not a lot of women or whatever. So I went into one county. It's around, like, West Plains area. And because I have clients all over the state. And I have a great driver. And shout out to Braylon. She's in the car listening.
Clearly
she's
a
awesome.
saint.
She is a saint, I know. I mean, believe me, we've already been in Kansas City twice this week just for court. And so, I always get there because I'm so busy, like 2 minutes till I'm supposed to be there. So we like get there and then open the door. It's like a packed courtroom. There's like probably, I don't know, 50 or 60 people.
Were they like all rise? And they're like, oh, so sorry. So sorry.
Oh yeah, I know that's a little challenging. I'll tell you that.
You should
but
just yell, I
it
object.
was so funny because I know Braylon is a saint, but she was pushing me, trying to get me into there, and we kept hitting the door and everything. And my client was over there; she was cracking up, and her face was red. And she was like, "Oh, I love you, but you totally made a scene when you came in."
Yeah, get used
because
to it, Braylon.
Because I mean, like, this is how nice attorneys are. So one of my cases, he didn't believe that I had surgery. So when
Who didn't?
This opposing counsel for one of my cases.
Do you think he really did not believe that, or he was just saying
being
that?
a jerk? I don't know. Who knows with attorneys? So anyway, I was like, well, we worked long in advance trying to file continuances so I wouldn't have to go to court at least the first week because you're on pain medicine and stuff. And so, like,
You're like, hey.
because who knows? Like, I already say what I think. And so, under the influence of pain medication, that's pretty scary.
Could be a good opportunity for appeal if it doesn't
Oh,
go
yeah,
your way.
right. And then let me tell you something, news leader. That would be interesting. And so, yeah, so I had to go into court like 3 days after I had surgery. So I've just been since then. Now, I can't argue a case when I'm in pain medicine. So I'd have to go and say, I just had surgery. I need a continuance. So, I've just been there are not a lot of attorneys in wheelchairs, but you do what you have to do. So, but,
Yeah. Well, you once again overcoming adversity.
I know, that's right. It's in my nature,
Most certainly
Indian
is.
and all.
Yeah.
But, yeah, the all rise, I can stand on one leg. So I can do the all rise.
And then just start doing that quick hop as you lose your balance and crash through the defense's table.
Although when you have a long argument, I mean, one of them, it was like evidence you're hearing. It's hard to hand, documents and evidence to people. I mean, just so you shouldn't take anything for granted. But then if I have to argue for 30 or more minutes, then I say, do you mind if I sit down? Because
You should get one of those long claw hand things that
I know a nabber grabber.
Yeah, is that what it's called? And then just
I do. I like the wheels. I want to totally bedazzle. I didn't get
Yeah,
to
you
do
should
that.
have.
My wheelchair and make it really shiny and stuff. So
then you should also get on each the left hand side of the back poles with siren lights. And you come rolling in.
Oh yeah, that
And then
would be good.
and then a horn that goes whoop. You know how they'll do just to let you know it's not full sirens.
no, and then you could have. Oh, you know what I should do? Except then she might not work for me to drive me, but I could have a American flag on one side and then a big Trump flag.
Oh yeah.
How would that go
Yep.
over in court?
Yeah, very well, I'm sure. More with Christy Fulnecki in moments. Here's a traffic update. I'm Nick Reed. Sarah Myers, everyone.
Thank you. Lots of rain in the forecast, which means that some of you may experience some roofing issues. Hopefully that is not the case, but if you do notice some yellowing on your ceiling, maybe some missing shingles, or just some full-blown just rain in your house, highly recommend you call my friends over at the Pyramid Roofing Company. They can come out, take tons of photos and videos, see exactly what is going on with your roof. And maybe you don't have a situation where you need a whole new roof. Maybe you need just a roof repair. Either way, the Pyramid Roofing Company, they are top-notch individuals. They are very upfront. They are very honest with you. They're not going to try to upsell you and be like, yeah, you need a whole new roof when you need just a roof repair. But either way, whatever situation you are in, the Pyramid Roofing Company, they will help you out. Now, you can find all of the contact information for the Pyramid Roofing Company housed at ksgf.com under the Sarah's Endorsements tab.
Chrissy Fulnecki with us. I have some
Yes,
Biden
yes.
Biden was,
Oh,
yes.
I missed Biden.
I know. Well,
I
I
know.
guess it was at the White House. I think it was a woman thing, lady thing or something. I don't know. But at one point,
Did he have his sniffers out?
yeah.
Was he smelling the hair
Yeah.
on the...
Yeah, you look like a police dog at a drug bust. You know? They're like, calm down, sir, calm down. You're gonna get overheated there. All right. So at one point, he decided, because he is eloquent,
Yes.
to recite a poem.
Oh, that's so scary.
Richard Blanco returned to a poem he wrote from the second inaugural of Barack and me. A poem, one today, says, and always one moon like a silent drum tapping at every rooftop and every window on every of every country. Let me start this over again. I'm getting so intimidated by being here.
Oh, he's senile,
One
clever.
moon, like a silent drum tapping on every rooftop and every window of one county. All of us facing the stars. Hope, a new constellation waiting for us to map it, waiting for us to name it together.
Oh, wow. That's
I
just
still don't know
cruel.
if it was supposed to be county or country.
I know. And who put him up to that?
I don't know.
If I'm Russia or China, I'm pretty scared right now.
Here he is. He's relaying one of his cute little stories about his relationship with Jill Biden.
Oh.
Doctor.
Yeah,
Dr.
that's
Joe
right.
Biden.
That's
We're
right.
talking inside. Jill has, and I think I told Nancy this before, Jill has put messages on my mirror while I'm shaving, so I make sure I see them. And one that was put in about a year ago was, stop trying to make me love you.
Yeah, I don't know
I
that
know
that's.
I don't think that's a note. It would be like, don't forget to put your pants on.
Yeah, he's. Or, more concerning, what is he trying to do to, quote, make her love him? Like, where she's like, stop it.
That's right.
No means no. Here he is also, I don't even know what the hell this is he's saying.
You know, I literally, as my sister would say, I wrote the Violence Against Women Act with my own paw.
What exactly?
He's
Now they need an interpreter at the White
I
House
know,
because we don't understand what he's saying.
He starts saying that my sister used to say, I signed these, and then he gets incoherent, and then he says, with my paw. But what I think is funny is that some people started to applaud, like, that's my favorite legislation, the one that you can't understand what he's talking about.
You know, I literally, as my sister would say, I wrote the Violence Against Women Act with my own paw.
That's my favorite act, the
What
Hobbs
is-
Act.
I don't even understand what he's saying.
I don't either, even when you listen to it again and
You know,
again.
I literally, as my sister would say, I wrote the Violence Against Women Act with my own paw.
Okay, all you teachers in public speaking, how do you think he did there? What kind of grade would he get in public speaking class? Okay.
Don't you make fun of him. He's our president.
That's right.
He's our
I
president.
know. Can you believe he's the president of the United States?
After he was finished articulating
I mean,
his
I'm telling
intellectual
you,
thoughts, Kamala got up for a few words.
And thank you also to President Biden. You can judge a strong man when he has strong women around him.
What in the world? I mean, those two, it's like a train
Train
wreck.
wreck.
I know, that's what I
That's
just
why
said.
Pete Buttigieg wasn't anywhere around.
That's right. Oh my god. Oh, have you seen all her speeches? I mean, I'm thinking, I cannot believe that she's a vice president. I think it was, it was one of the basketball team. Actually think it was Howard. Yeah, Howard in D.C. the Bisons, and she went in and they like totally got creamed in the basketball game, and she goes
Oh,
in to try to
yes.
give him a pep talk,
It's just
and I thought that
awful.
is the worst pep talk. Like, you
You
know what?
guys,
You know, you're
you-
winners.
Yeah,
you're
you-
winners.
My
And
favorite
they're
part
like-
was like, you guys played until the very end, and I'm thinking to myself, I was in a lot of sports. I wasn't really ever good at any of them, so I did a lot of team sports. It didn't. We always played to the end. There wasn't. No one
Yeah,
ever
that's
was
right.
like,
There wasn't a
you know what, we're
choice."
done.
I
You had a
know.
clock. And when the
I
clock ran
know.
out of time, you stopped. I don't know if she's unaware of that concept.
You know what would have been better if she would have come out and given them all a trophy.
Well,
Here's
at
what
least
you
she
get-
didn't.
Here's what you get for losing.
At least she didn't just come in and laugh the whole time,
Well,
cackle.
I know. Well, she did look very happy. But when you saw her, did you see their faces? I mean, they're like so depressed and they had their head
See
down.
the
And-
the, the version I saw, it was just her, and I remember thinking I'd love to see their.
Oh yeah, you
reaction.
should have seen their faces. I mean, they had their like most of them didn't even look up at her; they were looking down. I thought, "Are you kidding me?"
You're already depressed. Yeah. I mean, I can't imagine that level of emotion, and then they're like, "All right, guys, listen." The vice
You know,
president wants to come in and just say a few. You know that's how it was. It wasn't,
Oh,
oh,
yeah.
guys, I know you're real depressed, but things are about to turn around.
That's right. Oh, you know what would be funny? The commentary if you would have had somebody like Bobby Knight or somebody listen to that and be like,
There
"What do you
was-
think?"
there-
Oh, was there?
There,
a commentator?
it was a. I
Yeah,
have to
Bobby
forgive
Knight
me on
would-
this. No, it wasn't Bobby. I think
Yeah.
he died. Did he
Oh,
not die?
I don't know.
I don't know.
I mean,
I
he
don't
did
know
die, I don't
college
know.
sports in particular, but there
I'm
is
just thinking
a
like basketball coaches.
yeah, there's
Yeah.
a podcast or some sort of broadcast of somebody that used to be, I believe, a basketball coach, and I mean he was just he was going on and on about how she is the dumbest human being ever to be in the White House in any capacity. I mean, he just ripped her up and down. It was pretty amusing to listen to.
Yeah, I mean, and plus, okay, if you think about it, why would you go in and have her talk to somebody, a team, because they lost? Like, don't you want her to go in and be rah-rah for the team that won? Just because it's Howard? Oh, it's
Well,
a
I guess that's where she
it's a
went,
black
right?
school.
Didn't she
Yeah.
go? I think she
don't know.
went to the.
Did she go to Howard?
I think that's why she was there, is because she went there.
Well, I don't
Or
know. That
maybe-
was totally.
Maybe it was punishment. It's like, you know what, guys? That was the thing. They're like, if you win this, we will make sure that Kamala does not come in to give you a pep talk. She is primed and ready.
That's right.
That was the pep talk at the half. They're like, listen, the vice president's staff, they've
I
already
know.
reached out, and she wants to come in here. You pull this thing out, and I'll make sure she doesn't make it
I
in
mean,
here.
okay, I want to ask this question. Did all the speechwriters, did they all resign? Because nobody is following what is on the screen. Did you see her speech to the women, the whatever, the international women's thing? It was something this week.
I don't know, maybe.
It did not even make sense. And the only thing I understood in the whole thing was something about strong women. But I mean,
I
as
saw
a,
a clip
as a
because
woman,
she talked about that they were making history in history or so. She always repeats things. She makes these very redundant, broad statements.
but you know, I mean, she's an attorney, and I mean, that's your whole job is to be articulate. And I thought, and wasn't she the Attorney General of California?
Yes.
I mean, no wonder everything is in such a mess because I thought I can't even imagine her standing up and trying to make an argument about anything. I mean, my 10-year-old could make a better
She's
argument
so
than.
smart. She's such an inspiration.
I mean, and it's not even about. It's just about being able to communicate. You know.
Oh, well,
I mean, it's not really a high bar to jump over.
we're just racist or something. I don't know. Misogynistic. We're
Well,
racist.
no, I'm not because I'm in all the categories, and now I have another category
Yeah,
since I'm
I know.
disabled.
Yep. You're checking off a lot of boxes. It's a little
That's
going
right.
a little overboard here,
That's
Christy
right.
Fulnecki. More coming up. I'm Nick Reed. Aller Building Company, the Woodvale community, this is in southwest Springfield, and they are through phase one, 37 homes. Prices starting at $389,900, 3, 4, and 5 bedroom floor plans. And it's a simple process. These are for folks that if you want a new home, you don't want to do any remodeling. You call, schedule a private meeting, showing, pick a home, write a contract, then design the new home in the showroom floor. It's Aller Building Company, OLLER. Christy Fulnecki is with us. We
Yes,
did, during the short break there, find a positive perspective of the current
the silver
administration.
lining.
And
yes.
And that is when you look at Biden, you look at Kamala Harris, one of the things that I know when I was growing up, that was always almost a cliched statement about the greatness of this country is that in America, anybody can grow up to be president.
That's right.
And if there's anyone who has proven that, whether it's
That's
president
right.
and or vice president, these two, certainly it must be a message to every young person that, look, if they can do it,
I know.
you can do it.
It's
Inclu-
so,
in
it's so
fact,
inspirational.
Yeah, in fact, if it weren't for that age limit of 35, you probably could do it right now.
Yeah, that's right. Like I said, I think all my kids could run the government better than these people can.
Yes.
And you don't have to have any experience, and you can be self-employed and be the head of Department of Transportation.
Well,
I mean,
and it's a
the sky's
yeah.
the limit, really.
And it's
you
a
know.
great moneymaker.
Yeah.
I mean, you become first vice president as Biden did, and then you get out and you get millions of dollars and your family from countries like China, Russia, and no explanation as to what it's for.
I know, and you don't get investigated for
No,
anything.
no.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it
get
is
a jail-free card.
one
There are a
heck
lot
of
of
a gig.
benefits. Yeah.
You can be smoking crack with hookers on tape talking about Russians stealing your laptop
Yeah.
in order to get information on your dad and also falsifying federal forms to get a firearm. And it's like, hey.
Oh, yeah, but we have one disclaimer, though, that it's only if you're a Democrat.
Yeah.
So if you're a Republican, that doesn't really apply. The sky's not the
They
limit.
make up crimes
Yeah.
to try to come
Yeah,
after
that's
you.
right.
Yeah.
So if you want to be a Democrat and run, then it's fine.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Listen, if you are if you just are very flawed as a person and you want to work somewhere where not only is it not a hindrance, but it's actual enhancement to your career, just run as a Democrat.
Yeah, that's right. And, you don't even have to have the mental fitness, physical fitness.
No.
You don't have to. I mean, you could have a computer talk for you if you run for office in Pennsylvania.
You can run,
mean,
actually
and you
not
can-
even run, and then as soon as you get the gig, be like, you know what, I'm checking into this hospital. See you guys. That's it. I'm out.
That's right.
And
That's right.
yeah.
That's proxy. I think you guys need to run.
Mm-hmm.
Run the Senate for me, okay? I'll be okay right here. I'm having a mental breakdown.
Let's do a traffic
Okay.
update. We'll continue with Christy Fulnecki, Springfield's Talk 1041. I'm Nick Reed. I want a great homeloan.com. Don Carricker, Alex Carricker, Anthony Carricker. There's a lot of information that you need to know in order to not disrupt that home loan process. There are certain things that if you've not done it before or it's been a long time, you might think won't make a difference or maybe even help. Great grandma dies, she leaves you $10,000. You're like, oh, awesome. I'll just put that in my checking account. That'll show them that I'm even more financially sound than they thought. Nope, doesn't work that way. I know it may sound counterintuitive. This is why you need the Carrickers and their team in order to guide you through this. And a lot of that helpful information is actually even at iwantagreathomeloan.com. So that's where you need to start for all of your home loan needs. First alert forecast, flood watch this afternoon through Friday night. We're going to have showers and thunderstorms today, tonight, and tomorrow. Today's high 70. Tomorrow's high is 53. And then Saturday, mostly cloudy with a high of 56. Christy Fulnecki is with us.
Yes, I am.
So there's this.
And, okay.
There's been. Oh, no, did you have something to say?
Oh, no. Well, after that.
Okay.
Okay.
There have been a number of different stories in a number of different venues. It all started several weeks ago. Ashley Reynolds on KY3, the On Your Side, and there was one with VA on the north side that when COVID first hit, their utilities went down quite a bit,
yeah.
which made sense because they were shut down. But then CU called me like, oopsie daisies, our fault. We had some broken parts or something. You owe us about $6,000. And, fortunately people donated so that they wouldn't have to worry about that. But now there's this news leader piece, city utilities fielding complaints over bills from previous meter failures. And so there were, according to CU, 389 gas meters and 120 water meters weren't tallying usage. And so these people are in the same position. They're being told you owe this money. And what's funny is, so the story says Joel Alexander, a CU spokesman, said that each of these cases were thoroughly inspected when determining past usage. He said the faulty meters and the complicated billing process is not a good thing for customers, but said CU is doing everything it can to remedy the situation, saying we expected to get complaints. CU officials voted in December to pursue that money, but suggested waiving the fees. And
what?
Yeah.
So they voted on this?
That's what it said.
Wow.
It said they voted to pursue the lost earnings. I mean, to me that sounds like get the money from the people.
Yeah, exactly.
Even though it was their CU's fault. I
totally don't agree with that. I don't think that's right. Especially when people are struggling.
Well, and so on one hand, people are like, well, they used it. Okay. But you think about all of the time, you have different entities and organizations that cut charity checks to this, and they have money set aside for that. And sometimes it's just like, really? I mean, come on.
Yeah, but they rely on their equipment. I mean, they're, in terms of, and their budget. And I mean, if it was maybe, a co-op or something, that didn't have large budget, but I mean, I happen to know that everybody, I mean, I know this can make people mad, but a lot of those people that over there make over six figures. I mean,
right.
It's so there's not any kind of fun that they cover this. I mean, this is a unusual situation that happened, but I mean, I would definitely fight that if I was
This is also for people, I would recommend that they really evaluate this and remember this sort of situation next time. Let's say Springfield comes up with this idea that seems to every so often have one universal trash service. Now they haven't pushed that for a while.
Yeah. I remember I fought against that.
Yeah, and I was like, you do not want to do this. And the selling point always is, but we'll negotiate you tremendous rates and we'll hold them accountable. But that never, ever, ever happens because often you get that entity, the contracts are like 10 years long, and then they're making donations to the campaigns, and you never really see those relationships get severed. And look at this. When you don't have to worry about losing customers, you have the luxury of being like, sorry.
I know, that's right.
I can all but guarantee you, if Springfield were a market where you could choose,
you had a choice.
This would be approached much differently by CU.
Yeah, I think that's really sad. And I mean, I still think that, I mean, and shout out to you guys for having the fundraiser and stuff, but it's kind of sad that we have to do that. I mean, I think that's, and you're totally reliant on somebody else's equipment, you know?
Right.
So, yeah, that's crazy.
Well, you would
But-
even, and I guess not. Again, this is the benefit of being in their position where you have no option. You have to take them. Generally, you would think in an
But-
agreement that part of the agreement would be your equipment that you're providing works.
Yeah.
I mean,
And then how do you know that that's accurate, though? How do you know that, I mean, I foresee, I'm not trying to get clients here, but I foresee some kind of lawsuit coming out of this if there are that many people, because how do you know that once it's fixed, it's going to be accurate? I mean,
a
that's
couple
really
of text
funny.
messages on this. One saying, "What about all the COVID relief money, for God's sakes?"
I know, that's
well,
right.
and you do. I mean, you've
Yeah.
got this. You have Springfield and Greene County. It's like they can't figure out how to give it away. They have so much.
And
Hey,
what about- yeah.
submit an application. We got all this money. We don't know what to do with it. And here you have people in this particular situation that they had no control over whatsoever. And you do, and I'm sure there are, quote, reasons that they say that they can't. Another saying this the situation with CU is why I don't donate to Project Share. That's what it's supposed to be for, but they don't
Good
use the money
point.
for
Oh,
it.
yeah, that's a really good point.
See, I don't have CU. I'm not within that realm. So what is the Project
Well,
Share? Is it supposed to go to people that can't afford their...
Yeah, but I mean, that's a good point. But there's always, they act like that there's not money in the budget, but every time we want to go hire a consultant or hire somebody or work on legislative priorities that we don't even have any jurisdiction doing because we're not in the legislature, all these projects on city council are 100,000 plus. So believe me, there's somewhere you could find in the budget to cover this, because it's probably, I mean, not a lot compared to the CU budget. And frankly, I mean, some of how much the people make over there
Well,
for a public
yeah.
utility is just crazy to me.
And again, I don't know. I'm not going to pretend like I know how all of these decisions are made and how it's all run. But I can, once again, anytime that you are in a community, in the community, there's some service that's provided in that community that is private sector, and you get to choose, and the government says, well, how we can get a better deal for you. Just remember this. Because, like I said, anytime a company knows you have nowhere to go.
I know.
They
I
don't
know.
have to try to keep you. They're not
Yeah.
nearly as responsive to your needs.
That's right.
Christy Fulnecki
That's-
with us.
Okay.
Going to take a traffic update here. If that's
And then we're going to talk about Trump.
okay.
Does that sound good?
Yeah.
Okay.
Going to talk about Trump. Hey everyone, it's Christy Fulnecki.
Yay!
Yay!
Good morning.
Yeah, you wanted to
Well,
talk
I am
Trumpalicious?
Well, it's more about I am just astonished on what's going on at the legal system. I mean, not just my cases, which are just every day I'm totally shocked at our legal system, but I mean on the federal level, I mean I know people have been following the Trump story, but like some of these documents, at least the classified documents, and that opinion or some item of evidence was submitted under seal. So, and then it was leaked. So it was either it was a judge. I mean, people don't really realize what a big issue that is. It was either the judge or the prosecutor or somebody. I mean, but I can't even believe it. And then the DA, like listening in Manhattan and listening to his past comments about how, I'm really proud because I sued Trump 100 times when I was at Department of Justice. I'm like, what in the world? I can't believe they let somebody that they wouldn't try to.
It's bad, and I'm wondering, with the combination of things that have been occurring, I think the idea of a grand jury always seemed
it's not fair to me.
very serious to people because you didn't know what goes on in a grand jury. It just sounds very official and like it has this gravitas to it. But the clown show that is going on with the New York DA and that grand jury, but even the Georgia one, where remember a couple months ago that 30-year-old girl
we talked about it,
who was going on this interview, and she's like, well, I really hope that like Trump gets indicted because we spent a lot of time doing this, and I thought it would have been so cool if I got to swear him in. Like,
and then the judge didn't even gag her. No, I mean,
know.
He didn't. I know she just went out and just spilled the beans.
It scares me.
And I do the grand jury process is every one of my cases that I don't do a lot of criminal work, but I have one right now. And it just, to me, it's so unfair because you do not have, people don't realize, some people, that you do not have the defense in there. Yeah. So you don't even get to say, this is totally politically motivated. I mean, they must have such a weak case that they can't even bring it because you don't even have a defense that's arguing against it in a grand jury. You just have them presenting their side. But to me, I mean, it's just outrageous. They always talk about frivolous civil complaints, and I get all these motions to dismiss when I'm fighting a case, but then you can just bring something that is as big as a criminal charge and then not even be able to defend yourself.
It really is with this case as if someone had said, let's create a scenario in which we could not prove any more that this was politically motivated. Because if this were a DA that came in and was like, if I get in there, by gosh, there is not going to be any crime at all that goes on.
Right.
But violent crime, I mean, this was part of what he ran on is when it came to violent crime, not being as harsh on people and dropping felonies down to misdemeanors. And so this runs counter to that, not to mention, I mean, every department that has ever looked at this, including him when he first got elected, said, he didn't do anything illegal. I mean, it's just so clear. And that's what's so frightening is that it can be this clear that it is politically motivated, just as if we are some banana republic, and nothing is done about it. Nothing.
And every one of my cases, everybody, I mean, from family law to juvenile to, every single scenario dealing with the children's division, everyone, they're like, how does this happen in America?
I know.
And the crazy thing is that the attorney general, he is not doing anything. He's not investigating. I'm like, what do? Go out and have ice cream with Biden every day? I mean, you're not doing anything. And I mean, people don't realize, even in the state of Missouri, how important the attorney general is. Yeah. Because, I mean, I've had, I'm a huge law enforcement supporter, and I always have been. But there are a couple, sometimes cops that, that they're dirty, and you try, what do you do when you have, a prosecutor that is corrupt, or you find out a police officer on a case is corrupt? And like one of my cases around the Kansas City area, I said, well, as a citizen to my client, you can go and file a complaint in the police department. Well, she goes in and files a complaint against a couple of officers, and then the chief of police said, I'm going to throw those in the trash. Is that this attorney in Springfield that's telling you to do this? So they're not even investigating internally. So then, like a situation like that, oh yeah, and then the chief of police try to shake me down, like trying to intimidate me in a wheelchair. And I mean, something like that, you're like, oh, okay, well, who's supposed to help you with that?
Right.
You know?
What did you see the allegations and the arrest in Iron County,
No,
which is over? It's between St. Louis and Cape Girardeau, and they arrested the sheriff's deputy.
Oh, that's
and
right. That's right. I did see that. My sister actually sent that was a national
that's
story.
crazy. But
I know.
that's scary too, because you think about how often does that happen, and if the allegations are true, they get by with it, and it's I think it was last week or the week before it occurred. For people who haven't followed it, and they were arrested. I think 4 total, 3 in law enforcement, 1 not. And the one who wasn't, I guess he's a guy around the county that just sort of does what he wants and that's the reputation, according to people, that everyone knows who this guy is, owns a lot of land and so forth, and that he had some dispute with his wife, and essentially, according to the allegations, he and his buddies in Iron County law enforcement tried to kidnap his kids from the wife and frame her for child abuse and everything, and fortunately I don't know if they were so reckless about it that they couldn't keep it contained or what, but they were arrested for it. Now the sheriff's attorney is saying it's all politically motivated and so forth, and that's why you have your day in court. Maybe it is, but just based off what we do know happened, according to the reports, it seems pretty bad.
Well, no, I mean, I'm telling you, justice is not blind. I mean, I just and I haven't lost hope for the legal system, but it is just frightening. Because I do a lot of, like, when you have Megan Fox, she's starting to cover some more
PJ Media.
With PJ Media in New York, and so she started covering more of my stories, and one of the counties are in Kansas City, and you've reported on this when they have these psychologists, these attorneys will pay the guardians and pay psychologists to get whatever diagnosis they want,
Right.
and then now we have clients that we have the new diagnosis, and we're trying to admit it into court and start a new case, a motion to modify in family law court. And, we just had a judge say, well, that's not a substantial change of circumstance. And I'm like, what are you talking about? She lost her kids because you said she was
Right.
crazy. And then now she's completely normal. And so, like, just crazy stuff's happening. Well, my story is so I got a call from a guy. I don't even want to say what city, because he's a federal agent, used to be a police officer in St. Louis. And this whole family court thing's happening to him. And his son was abused and the whole thing. And Children's Division did not follow up on it. And he's having all these problems. I mean, Children's Division, I'm sorry, the whole entire thing is a mess. It needs to be scrapped. They're weaponized and they do whatever they want. And I'm sorry if there's somebody you like, but Children's Division is terrible. And so I'm thinking, you are a federal agent. What he does, I can't say what agency in the federal government, but he investigates sex crimes, sex trafficking, and illegal adoptions. And this is somebody it happened to. And so these people are paying me to go all around the state to fight this. And I'm thinking, okay, these people are in the system that know people that can fight it, and they're having trouble, and they're having guardians that are going against them. I mean, every day
scary.
I'm like, you
scary.
are so, I mean, it's just, you just have to be thankful for your life, because once you have something bad, especially in family court, happen to you, or you try to fight for your kids, I mean, it's terrible.
Total nightmare.
Yeah.
More with Christy Filnecki here on Springfield's Talk 104.1. I'm Nick Reed. right, Christy Fulnecki.
I know that was kind of serious. We got kind of serious there.
Yeah, nice.
But you know what? What's going to solve it all? Well, because Joe Exotic, Tiger King, is running for president.
I saw that he was talking about it. Has he
Did you-
floated?
Okay, well, this is the quote of the week.
Okay.
I always like these quotes. He said, "Put aside that I am gay, that I am in prison for now, that I used drugs in the past, that I had more than one boyfriend at once, and that Carol Baskin hates my guts. This all has not a thing to do with me being able to be your voice."
All right, well.
And then
Has he-
one of my daughters is like, "He has my vote."
Has he floated whom it is that he would consider for vice president? That's what I
I'm
want to.
not sure. I know that would be
I wanna
pretty
know that.
entertaining. Yeah. I don't know. How's he going to campaign when he's in jail?
Well, Joe Biden
Social
campaigned
me-
from his basement.
Well, good point. I
I mean,
know. Social
why not?
media.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, really, that's right. What you're saying earlier. I mean, if you can be in a hospital, if you can be in your basement,
Mhm.
why can't he be in jail and run for
Right,
office?
yeah.
The sky's the limit. It's America.
I mean, is what he was convicted of any worse than getting millions of dollars from the communist
yeah,
Chinese?
That's right. I know.
And then
That's good,
and then
good point.
and what's
Joe
so,
Exotic for president.
yeah, and they both deny what Biden. I mean, just even he's denied he's gotten the money. I mean,
know,
all
yeah, that's right.
the records the Treasury
money?
Department turned it over, and so he was asked by a reporter about this one specific release that, and again, this is stuff Karine Jean-Pierre was asked about this
Oh, yeah, I saw
from
that.
Peter Ducey, and she's like, these are, the Republicans have just told so many lies. It's like this is from the Treasury Department. This is, and they tried to keep it hidden. They didn't want,
Yeah.
because they knew, and it was flagged by them. This wasn't a political thing. Now, it was, at some point, how we learned that they had this, I don't know. But we did know it, and they refused to turn it over. They were stonewalling until they were going to be pulled to testify before Congress, and then they started turning things over. But it shows this money was funneled through this other entity, and there are 3 Bidens that have received $1 million. And Biden, he just said, that's not true. I mean, how do you counter that?
I know. Plus, it's totally illegal.
Yeah.
Has everybody missed that point? I mean, that's what I'm like. Where?
Greg Gutfeld, I heard him say, did he pay taxes on this? Because if he
Oh,
didn't,
good point.
that's another thing. And if he did, like, what services were rendered? That's what nobody's answering. Like,
You
what
know, it's
was
kind of like everything going on in America. It reminds me of, like Jack Ryan or Homeland or like one of these. And then you're like, no, this is real life. This
It
is
is
not
real life.
a series on Netflix. This is real life that we're living through.
It's
So, I
so
don't know.
bad. It is so bad.
I don't know.
We
Maybe
really
maybe
are,
the Tiger King can bring us hope.
maybe.
I know.
Hey,
He's not trying to hide anything. He's right out there.
all
you
I know, and it's not an argument regarding our involvement with Ukraine, but it kills me every time people will say that we shouldn't help them based off the fact that their government's corrupt. And I'm like, if they're corrupt, what are we? Part of their corruption involved the current president of the United States.
I know,
and
that's
his
right.
son. I mean, I'm not saying they aren't corrupt, but for Pete's sake, look at our government. It's awful. It's so much worse. You always know there's a difference between having corrupt people in power and then having just that power ultimately corrupt, and that's where we are. So,
That's right.
all right. Well, thanks for
All
coming
right,
in.
but you know what? Don't get on a train anytime soon, okay?
Buddha
If
Judge
you
will save you.
That's right.
Emily Johnson, House Theory Realty. I've heard numerous people in my own conversations in fact, yesterday having a conversation with somebody, and he was talking about how they were renting right now, or they were planning on renting because of the market and rates where they are. And, listen, everyone's situation is different. But the one thing I know is don't just go with what you hear people talking about on social media. If you don't know if this is the right time for you to try to sell your home or to buy one, talk with Emily Johnson, broker, owner, House Theory Realty, about your particular situation. And she'll be honest with you. I'm sure she won't tell you what to do, but she'll say, all right, well, what's going on? What's your situation? What are you thinking? Well, these are my thoughts. This is what's going on currently. So she's going to provide you that information so that you have the tools to know whether or not it is the best time for you. More information, the better. And no one knows the market as well as she does here in the area. That's Emily Johnson, House Theory Realty. We've got Author of the Week coming up, sponsored by ABC Books on North Glenstone. There is also a flood watch kicking in this afternoon through Friday night. Now, Jason Rima with news. Rima mentioned that flood watch this afternoon through Friday night, and temperature-wise, high today of 70, 48 tonight, 53 tomorrow, and then the showers and storms with heavy rain that is going to start this afternoon will be moved out by Saturday. It will be mostly cloudy with a high of 56. 1041, I'm Nick Reed, and it's Thursday, which means it is Author of the Week time, sponsored by ABC Books on North Glenstone. And our author today is Bethany Mandel. The book is Stolen Youth, How Radicals Are Erasing Innocence and Indoctrinating a Generation. And I must admit, I saw you on an interview on one of the networks or read an article, Daily Wire perhaps, and this resonated with me for a number of reasons, and appreciate you coming on this morning. One of the reasons, and I'm going to lay this groundwork and ask you what made you write the book, but aside from the motivations with all of this pushing and indoctrinating, is the fact that it doesn't work. I see that all of these areas that those who push much of the agenda, they say, well, we do it in order to help in this area or to bring people together in this area. Yet it just makes things worse, and it just drives me nuts because it isn't making things better, and it is the erasing of innocence. And it was that phrase in particular in your title that really resonated with me, and thank you again for being with us. And if you would, tell us a bit about the idea behind the book and what made you decide to write it.
Yeah, thank you so much. So the idea is basically, this push towards equity that sort of woke revolutionaries are trying to promote is not possible. So it's not going to work in that it's, the idea that real communism has never been tried before.
Right.
Things will never be equal, and things will never be totally just, and things will never be totally fair. And, that's what I was told as a kid. Life isn't fair. But there was apparently a lot of children who were not told that as kids, or a lot of adults who were not told that as kids. And so we saw this attempt to equalize everything really harmfully impacting our children in a lot of different ways. And so this sort of cultural revolution that is being attempted is happening from a lot of circles. And, I think that conservatives are paying a lot of attention to the indoctrination that's happening in schools, the idea that, there is no such thing as a man, there is no such thing as a woman. You can't just not be racist anymore. You have to be anti-racist. And a lot of extremist positions are found within those positions. But we noticed that it was sort of coming at our kids from all sides. It wasn't just schools, it's books, it's movies, it's even happening in their pediatrician's offices and in therapist's office. And those are some of the places where it's sort of the most dangerous. And so we wanted to sort of write a book that, there's a lot of attention being paid to how this woke revolution is remaking corporate America and college campuses, and all of those are really important sort of deep dives. But we saw it really aggressively coming for children, and we wanted to write a book that really laid out for parents, like, this is the enemy and this is what you're fighting against, and also arm parents with the tools to sort of fight back against this forced indoctrination that's coming from, all sides.
Well, and I want to ask you about those tools here in a moment. And this is really topical right now. We have school board elections coming up in a few weeks. And we, like a lot of areas of the country, had an awakening locally in Springfield in particular. And there was one parent and citizen that is just real laser focused on actual education for the kids, and it has been a rough ride. In the last round of elections, it was clear that there's a movement at foot, and some of the elites, if you will, were voted off the school board. One is a local professor at a university, and there were some citizens that got on there. And once again, we're facing that. We've got somebody that was former Black Lives Matter pushing in the schools individual. We've got somebody who is also at one of the universities. And recently there was an event where they bused kids, primarily kids of color, from the school to the university, and were pushing racial trauma. And at one point, I don't want to get too in the weeds here, but just so you know what we're dealing with, the so-called expert had all of the kids close their eyes and said, how many of you have experienced racial trauma? And a school board member was there, the one who's focused on education, and she noticed that about 1 out of 5 kids raised their hand. They were told to open their eyes, and then the expert noted that the reason she knows that racial trauma is real here is because every single one of you students raised your hand. Well, it was a lie. Well, the school board member who pointed the truth out is under attack by the university, the NAACP, the school, some of the other school board members. And I think a lot of parents, they see that and they think, I mean, if it's so blatant and they are so unapologetic in attacking those who just want kids to actually learn in a meaningful way, what tools do we have? And what is it that parents can do in order to combat this damage that is being done to the kids?
Yeah, so I mean, what you just described is truly like the definition of an emperor's new clothes moment. And I think that people across the country are having those moments, of this doesn't seem right. My kid is coming home with, gingerbread person homework from their health class. And I don't think that they're reading on grade level, and I don't think that they're doing math on grade level. And that's, for every minute that is spent on equity and inclusion and sort of racial trauma and all of these things that really don't exist and are not sort of possible and are not certainly within the realm of what schools should be focusing on with other people's children. For every minute that's focused on that, they're not spending that time on actual academic subjects. And so, individual parents should do basically what you just described and call it out and say, the emperor has no clothes. 4 out of 5 hands were not raised, and be very emphatic in their defense of the people who are willing to say the emperor has no clothes. Back that person up publicly, because they're putting themselves out there, and they should feel the support of their community. And then also sort of, when your kid does come home with a gingerbread person homework, which is a real thing, in which they're told that your gender is in your brain and not in your biology. Talk to other parents in the classroom who share a classroom with your children, and talk to school administrators and try to get it out. They are your children, and I think that at the end of the day, people are afraid of coming off as racist or bigoted, and they don't want to be painted as such. And that's not a good feeling. It's not a good feeling to feel like everybody's mad at you and everyone thinks that you're a bad person. But ultimately, our responsibility at the end of every day is to our children first and foremost. And I think that it's imperative for parents to keep their eye on that ball, to know that my kid is my priority and everything else is just noise.
We're talking with our author of the week, Bethany Mandel, Stolen Youth, How Radicals Are Erasing Innocence and Indoctrinating a Generation. We have, and I think a lot of the American population are familiar with certain dangerous components to this. We saw it in teacher instruction, mandated teacher instruction a couple of years ago, where they had to acknowledge that they understood Blue Lives Matter was racist. And if you are the victim of a crime and the perpetrator is a person of color and you call the police, you're inherently a racist. And these are areas that a lot of parents, they know that they're out there. When you were doing your research, did you find any, I don't know if I'd say more covert or insidious or other more subtle forms of this sort of indoctrination that parents should be on the alert for?
So I think the scariest chapter for me personally to write was actually there's 2 of them. One of them is sort of what's happening very secretly in children's literature, and it's been making the news a lot. So the publisher of Roald Dahl, for example, tried to alter his words posthumously, and Penguin came under fire for it, and because of the fire that they experienced, they backed off. And so, I mean, again, that's sort of one of the tools that parents should use when they're sort of trying to fight against this ideology on a more macro level. Like on a micro level, you talk to your school principal, but on a macro level, when you see things like this, reach out to the publishers, for example, like tweet at them, send them a Facebook message, like deluge them with your opinion. Same is happening with Scholastic, with R.L. Stein's Goosebumps. So that to me was kind of scary, that it felt like a very 1984 moment, that we're changing the words of literature and banning literature. But the scariest thing sort of on a long-term basis was the medical chapter, how this ideology has woven its way into medical schools. And so you have to, answer correctly on their essay questions about DEI in order to even gain admittance to medical schools. But then also, when you're in school, all of these classes are mandatory, and there are some classes like anatomy that are being made optional. And then sort of moving forward, in your in your pediatrician's medical practice, that first visit with your preteen or teenager, in which they talk to your child without you present, they ask them, what is your gender identity? And, the secrecy that is involved at the pediatrician's office is frightening. And then also at school as well. I mean, sorry, you hear my baby in the background.
That's
but the
fine.
secrecy aspect the secrecy aspect is quite frightening, that a lot of things can happen without parents, not even just consent, but knowledge. There was one scary story of a girl who started going by male pronouns, and her parents were only clued into their child's mental health crisis because she drew a picture that indicated she was suicidal. And it was only at that point did school administrators sort of alert her parents to the fact that she's going through some stuff. And there were warning signs in her gender identity confusion that were brushed under the rug and hidden actively from her parents by school administrators. And so that sort of the medical aspect and the secrecy aspect are two of the most frightening.
It seems like such an obvious red flag to me. We all, I suppose, grew up in different eras, but the schools were a cultural place. So many of us were taught that you should never, ever be expected to keep a secret from your parents. And anyone, whomever it is, no matter how trusted they are, if they ever tell you to keep something from your parents or that it's a secret between you and them, do not listen to them. And now that's the very thing. It's so scary. It's so scary. Yeah. So all of that being said, and a lot of parents feel as if, pop culture, you've got education, medical, in some instances even churches are infiltrated with this. They think it's absolutely overwhelming. What's the hopeful line here? Where is that signal of hope?
So within the book, the last chapter is my co-author Carol Markowitz and I break it up, and she talks about sort of how to stay in the world, send your kids to public school, have them watching current movies and television shows and books, and sort of how to navigate this problem from within. And my perspective is that we go galt, to like sort of reference another great piece of literature, and just step out. My kid's favorite movie is Jumanji, that was made in I think 1994. My kid's favorite actor is Robin Williams, who starred in Jumanji, and he was the star of many of their other favorite movies, like Mrs. Doubtfire. My kids watch movies that I grew up on, and it saves me the trouble of having to pre-screen things. But it also, these kinds of ideas were not present just a short time ago in 1994 and the mid 90s. And also, the same with books. My kids are reading books that, my daughter's reading through the Nancy Drew series right now, and actually Roald Dahl, is, sort of ironic. But this is sort of, we're giving parents sort of ideas and tools to tackle this from multiple perspectives. But ultimately, the last word in the book is fight. And we have to fight for our kids. And fighting for our kids looks different for every single family. Looks different for my family. It looks different for my co-author's family. But ultimately, that's what we have to do. We have to fight for our kids.
Author of the Week, sponsored by ABC Books on North Glenstone, Bethany Mandel. Stolen Youth, How Radicals Are Erasing Innocence and Indoctrinating a Generation, on Springfield's Talk 104.1. I'm Nick Reed. Don't forget, Saturday, Retro Metro, we're having our welcome to being a new American party for Katie. We're going to be hosting that. She, of course, has worked with us for 4 years, specifically KSGF, producing for Kyle Wyatt's show, and went through the pathway to citizenship that actually does exist, and got sworn in as an American last week. And so we're going to have a party for her at Retro Metro. We'd love for you to come by Saturday 4 to 6, Pyramid Roofing sponsoring that. It's come and go as you please. It's just time to come together and congratulate her on becoming an American. Springfield's Talk 1041. I'm Nick Reed. Traffic update. First Alert Forecast sponsored by St. Clair of the Ozarks Home Improvements Flood Watch this afternoon through Friday night. We got showers, storms this afternoon, heavy rain, high of 70. That rain continuing tonight, low of 48. Tomorrow as well, high of 53. Then mostly cloudy Saturday with a high of 56. The New York Times has just a fun little piece about how that advice that we were all given about disinfecting everything in the name of COVID, not only was it not helpful, it was probably harmful. Quote, "We know now that the extra cleaning was unlikely to have helped limit the spread of COVID-19, but it did increase people's exposure to the chemicals used in those products, some of which may be hazardous to your health. Experts worry that repeated inhalation or skin contact can be harmful over time. Calls to poison control centers about cleaning chemicals also increased during the pandemic, primarily for accidental or intentional ingestion." I'm sure that was Trump's fault, of course. The disinfecting of everything, in all honesty, it was not that far into the pandemic that the CDC said, well, we realize that actually doesn't help any. And I remember that because it was this little announcement, and it did not stop people from wanting to disinfect everything. It was actually a very interesting observation I felt on human behavior. Because on one hand, because I thought about this and when it happened, and even when it comes to the 6 feet apart and the mask, when you have the CDC or the vaccinations, you'll have an outfit like the CDC come out and say, actually, we don't recommend that you have to do that any longer because we've realized that that doesn't really help. That the people who jumped at the opportunity to do such things because the CDC said so did not then follow the CDC's recommendation that it wasn't necessary, but instead stuck with the original action. And I thought, well, that's interesting because on one hand, we characterize those individuals, and I did this as well, as people that just looked to the anointed experts as God, essentially, and did not question anything they said. They did whatever it was they were told to do. You tell us to do it, and we'll do it. But then, when they were told, you don't have to do this any longer, we don't recommend it, instead of responding in the same manner and saying, well, we don't have to do it now because the CDC said so, while some would respond to that, but there were others that did not. And I don't think that there was any example as stark as the disinfecting everything. And I remember even after the CDC made that declaration that you don't need to be disinfecting everything. I know here we were still told to do it. Restaurants were still, some anyhow, closing down for an hour in the middle of the day for the purposes of disinfecting everything. And this was after the CDC said you don't have to do it. It doesn't do any good. And so I ask myself when all that was occurring, why is it? Why do we ignore that when we're told, listen to the CDC, they're experts? And I think oftentimes it is a case-by-case scenario. And the actions and whether or not people will adhere to them, even if it's just to feel safe, can depend on how easy they are. And for example, the masking situation is an inconvenience. Most people don't care for it, which is why a lot of people in the beginning questioned, and they turned out to be correct, whether or not simply wearing a mask could stop the spread of COVID. We'd, of course, learned that it would not. But then there were you had those that just are total slaves to whatever the government experts say, and they would mask up without even being given an explanation as to why, just because we said so, that would be enough for them. But then you have a portion of America that is, well, they may not really know for sure, but better safe than sorry, and yeah, it's a hassle, but, I don't want to make a big deal of it, and so forth. And so once the CDC said, all right, we don't really necessarily have to, under most circumstances, wear it, though the people that weren't 100% sure, but better safe than sorry, a lot of them, I think, they're just like, okay, yeah, we're not going to wear them any longer. But the people that are gripped by fear, the CDC saying to those people, you don't have to do it any longer, they just are so gripped by fear that even though, to them it's not an inconvenience and it is better safe than sorry. You look at the disinfecting thing, and why was it, though, that so many people still would disinfect everything to a degree that they did not do prior to COVID, well after the CDC said it doesn't really do any good? And I think because it's not necessarily inconvenient. Most people clean anyway to some degree, and so the cleaning supplies are there. And honestly, some may have thought, it wasn't the worst practice to get into. Probably could have cleaned just a little extra, a little more than we were before anyhow. And that got us to doing it. And so I think that the reason that people, to a large degree, in businesses, continued to do it at an increased level after the CDC said you don't have to is because it wasn't that much of an inconvenience. And I do think there's some a sense of virtue signaling, and at the same time, well, it makes people feel better. Because we heard that with the masks all the time. Well, it makes other people feel better. It makes and that was always an explanation that I thought was an explanation that added to societal's intellectual atrophy, because what it signaled was, instead of explaining to people that you don't have to do this, we should instead cater to their fears that are unfounded. And you should wear a mask because it makes them feel better, or disinfect everything because it makes people feel better. Once upon a time, we strove for intelligence. We strove for enlightenment. And so what we would do in order to lift up society was, whenever we learned new things, we would teach these new things to people that did not they were fearful. No, you don't need to be afraid. Here's why. But we have turned in our society oftentimes to, instead of explaining the truth and saying you don't need to be afraid of this, catering to that and pretending like, okay, there's something to be afraid of here, so we'll all pretend as if this is going to do some good, so that the 1 out of 1,000 people who are gripped with fear won't be scared any longer. But when it comes to the disinfecting thing, according to the New York Times, and what researchers are saying, is that not only was all that extra disinfecting not good, but it could have been harmful to people who were, of course, trying to stay healthy. But still, don't ever question the experts. Oh, by the way, speaking of experts, most of you have seen and or heard the segment of that PBS documentary regarding COVID and Fauci, in which Fauci and then Mayor of D.C., Bowser, they were going door to door trying to convince people in the summer of 2021 to get the COVID shots if they had not, and they encountered a man who had no trouble at all explaining why he didn't trust them and why he wasn't going to get the COVID shot. There evidently is another, I don't know if it's an actual video excerpt, but there's a story about how there is a scene in which Fauci is watching Biden, I guess, get sworn in as president, and he cried. He cried. Which I would argue, if you are a person that is so emotionally driven that you would cry at Biden becoming, I understand if it's your dad, if it's somebody that you know, or even I can understand, though I was not affected this way, people who, when Obama got it, because it's the first black president and it's historical, but you cry because Biden and by the way, not because he was fearful that somebody who he, as a doctor, would recognize as having some sort of severe mental deficiency. No, because apparently he was just so moved with what he saw as Biden's brilliance that he cried when he was being sworn in. Which one, from an intellectual standpoint, does that not give you a greater degree of distrust in Fauci's intellect than anything that he said or done, that he was so somehow convinced that Biden was this brilliant individual, this intellect that would be able to navigate us through the world's ills, not just COVID, but North Korea and Russia and China, that moment made him pause and cry. But the emotional component, and if you are that emotionally impacted by Biden getting sworn in as president, that, from an emotional standpoint and judgment, I think is just another indictment as to what sort of source of information and credibility Fauci should have been. Springfield's Talk 104.1, I'm Nick Reed. a number of you, and this includes Sarah, commented that when Biden got sworn in, they cried as well, but for different reasons than Fauci. Because and it really does. It sounds facetious, but you talk about a person's judgment, and you and I, the hillbilly anti-science people, just in terms of overall evaluation and judgment, we're saddened by, and, quote, cried. I know most people did not actually do so, but Biden's presidency, because we knew what was going to happen. We knew what he was going to do to the economy based off what he said. We knew that there would be inflation. We knew that the stability that had been created by Trump was probably going to become unstable. We knew what was going to happen at the border because he said, if I get elected president, all of you people who got turned away at the border, you will be welcome here into the United States. I mean, we knew. But for Fauci, apparently so moved and so grateful that this guy thought he was going to be so great for the country, he cried. That is a tremendous red flag when it comes to his evaluation of reality around him. It's not a political thing. In fact, he's said he's not political at all. You could almost forgive the guy if he were just some person who worked on Democrat campaigns and worked on Biden's campaign and thought, man, I can't believe we pulled this off. This is amazing. But for somebody that's not political, but just bases opinions off of factual or what he sees as factual, and that was his final conclusion. How scary is that? Sarah Myers, everyone.
Thank you. Well, I know that I am not the only one who has a busy life. I am constantly on the go. So whenever something unexpected pops up with my home, that can be really stressful. But I no longer have to worry about that because I have good friends over at Beatles Property Maintenance. Now, first things first, Beatles is spelled Beadles. What do? Well, they do a variety of home repairs and maintenance. A lot of those unexpected things that can pop up, they can help you out with. And they do a lot of both more serious jobs, but also those kind of like honey-do list items that kind of pile up over time. But they can help you out with mold remediation, crawl space issues. They can install vapor barriers, water restoration, and so much more. But they can also help you out, like I said, with those smaller things, little electrical work items that need to be done, maybe new lighting, or even a bathroom remodel. So whatever the case is with your home, highly recommend my friends over at Beatles Property Maintenance for all of your home repairs and maintenance needs. You can find their contact information housed at ksgf.com under the Sarah's Endorsements tab.
All right. Oh, I wanted to give, I don't know, did Kyle have a chance yesterday to list these locations for the Signatures Hotel of Terror?
He did, but you could mention it
Yeah,
again.
I was going to. I just didn't, wasn't sure if he was able to. All right. The Hotel of Terror, that the city has said they're going to move forward with eminent domain. And there is a push to collect enough signatures to where this will be a vote by the people. And now if there are enough signatures gathered, it's about putting it to a vote, if that makes sense, okay? And it's my understanding, from what the information I've been given, today is the last day that you can go to these locations in order to sign, because there is a deadline, and it must be coming up very soon. Blue Room Comedy Club, which is 420 West College Street, and they are open 4 to 10 p.m. Do we have these posted somewhere also?
No, but I will get them posted at
all right, we'll get them posted.
ksgf.com.
So if you're driving about or something, or you're doing something where you can't remember all these, we'll get them posted up so you can go sign if you want to today. Also, About Face Photography, which is on 3417 South Lone Pine. Vape CBD Crantum Superstore, 1773 South Glenstone, Suite B. The Barber Shop, 1352 East Sunshine. And you do need to be a registered voter in the Springfield city limits to sign. Now, I will say this. I know oftentimes people, you may not be in the city limits, but you say, well, I want to show my support, so I'm going to go sign anyhow. Don't do that, because that's not helpful. And your vote, not only will it not count, but it's not helpful to those who are trying to get this done. And as we mentioned, we'll get that up. Where will you be able to post that?
I will post them in the must read headlines, ksgf.com. Whenever you go to our website, you'll see our little rotating slider. Scroll down just a little bit and then click on today's show notes, and that's where you'll find it.
I want to play audio. Senator John Kennedy, Republican Louisiana. There is a United States magistrate judge of the U.S. District Court for the District of Columbia, and he's been nominated for a district court seat in the state. His name's Cato Cruz. And Kennedy has this knack of asking what should be almost embarrassingly elementary questions to judges about things of the law. And these individuals oftentimes demonstrate they don't know what he's talking about, which scares the hell out of me. And this is another exchange that demonstrates another person that currently, by the way, sits as a judge on the U.S. District Court for the District of Colorado, though he has been nominated by the Biden administration for a district court seat in the state.
Tell me how you analyze a Brady motion.
How I analyze a Brady motion?
Yes.
Senator, in my 4.5 years on the bench, don't believe I've had the occasion to address a Brady motion in my career.
Do you know what a Brady motion is?
Senator, in my time on the bench, I've not had occasion to address that, and so it's not coming to mind at the moment what a Brady motion is.
Do you recall the U.S. Supreme Court case, Brady v. Maryland?
I do recall the name of the case, the Senator, yes.
And what did it hold?
I believe that the Brady case, Senator, I believe the Brady case involves something regarding the Second Amendment. It is not. I have not had occasion to address that. If that issue were to come before me, I would certainly analyze that Supreme Court precedent and apply it as I would need to the facts in front of me.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Now, this is frightening for a couple of reasons. One, I know what he's talking about, and I didn't have to go look this up. Now, if you don't, unless you are a judge or an attorney, don't feel bad. Essentially, this goes back, I think it was a case in the 50s or 60s in Maryland, and two guys, his name was Brady, and he and this other guy were accused of together murdering somebody, and one of the two, the one whose name wasn't Brady, in his confession acknowledged that he was the one that actually did it. Well, then the state of Maryland also charged this other person with that, and he was charged with it, but they never turned over that confession to his attorney. So he sued based on it being a violation of due process, I think 14th Amendment as well. And that's where you got Brady v. Maryland, in which the court said if the state that's charging you has exculpatory evidence, they can't hide it from you. And there have been numerous instances in which people have been released from prison because of Brady violations. It isn't some obscure court case. What's further frightening is just the issue itself, that you have a judge, a high-level judge that has been nominated by the Biden administration, who doesn't appear to know the concept that if you are accused by the government of a crime and they have exculpatory evidence, they can't hide that from you. This guy doesn't have any concept of that. Every day that goes by, every story like this that pops up gives me further and further fear of our judicial system in this country. All right, in news, war against women, a man who identified as a female won first place in a female cycling event in New York City over the weekend. Changed his name to Tiffany. He was very low level, did not do well at all in competition until he decided to go by Tiffany and competing against women. He's placed in various competitions in recent years, costing women titles, including the 2022 Bucks County Classic and a number of others as well. But according to people on the left, there's absolutely no evidence being a man gives you any advantage in these sorts of events over a woman. None at all. Glenn Beck's next. Talk to you tomorrow.